Greetings, history enthusiasts, to legendary conquests. Today, we delve into one of the most iconic battles in history, a clash that changed the course of Europe forever, the Battle of Waterloo. The seeds for this fateful clash were sown years earlier during Napoleon Bonaparte's relentless rise to power in the early 19th century. By 1815, the Emperor of France had already been defeated once and sent into exile on the isolated island of Elba. But the restless Corsican was not finished yet. In late February of that year, Napoleon escaped from Elba with a small band of loyalists and began his journey back to Paris. Word of his return electrified both his supporters and his enemies. After a brief period known as the 100 Days, the armies of the 7th Coalition, led by the British under Wellington and the Prussians under Blücher, moved to intercept Napoleon for a final showdown. They knew the experienced emperor would not be easy to defeat. Napoleon, too, was aware that this could be his last opportunity to reverse his fortunes. Both sides prepared for a climactic battle that would decide the fate of France and shape the destiny of Europe. On the 18th eve of June, near a quiet village called Waterloo in present-day Belgium, these massive armies finally collided. Napoleon had amassed around 72,000 men to face the combined Allied force of over 120,000. He established his army on the ridge of Mont Saint-Jean, with its left flank anchored on the village of Papelotte and its right on the hamlet of La Haye-Saint. In front of this position lay a gently undulating open farmland dotted with fields, copses, and undulations. It was here that the Corsican would make his last desperate stand. Wellington rapidly deployed his forces behind the ridge. On the left, he placed the 1st Corps under Ziethen to defend Hougoumont Farm, an important strategic position. In the center were the bulk of the Anglo-Allied troops arrayed in a gentle slope. On the right flank, near the village of Braine-l'Alleud, were stationed the 3 RD Corps under the Prince of Orange. The entire field was dotted with orchards, undulating fields, and hedgerows, which would play a major role in channeling and disrupting attacks. The day began ominously for Napoleon, with persistent heavy rain, which soon softened the terrain into thick mud. Unperturbed, around 11 a.m., he launched a massive cannonade to soften the Allied positions. This was answered in kind by over 200 Allied guns, underscoring the immense scale of the coming clash. As the cannon smoke cleared, around 1 p.m., Napoleon threw Infante's 3 RD Division against Hougoumont in an attempted flanking maneuver. Fierce fighting ensued as the Allied garrison, anchored by Coldstream Guards, held on desperately amidst tinder-dry buildings and leafless woods. Simultaneous probing attacks were sent to roll up Wellington's flanks, but Dogger's Branch Brigade and Bylandt's Dutch-Belgian Cavalry Division beat them back. With these initial probes failing, Napoleon turned his attention to mounting a major assault on Wellington's center. Around 2 p.m., over 12,000 men in Riel's II Corps were sent against the Anglo-Allied lines in columns. They advanced uphill through the muddy fields and emerging corn, bringing a crescendo of drums and eagles. A massive bombardment from over 200 Allied cannons momentarily halted their attack. But Riel's soldiers soon regrouped and continued their determined assault. Fierce fighting erupted as they pushed to within 100 yards, only to be scythed down by devastating volleys of musket and artillery fire. Repeated attacks similarly failed to make a breakthrough. At around 4 p.m., the Emperor received word that Prussian forces were approaching from the east, which could cut off his line of retreat. In a desperate gamble, he committed his last reserves, the Old and Middle Guard, in an all-out assault to break Wellington's center before the arrival of Blücher. Led by Ney, these elite troops crested the ridgeline, drums beating, eagles flying. Wellington's veterans, many of whom had fought under the Emperor's command years ago, stood unflinchingly. At less than 50 yards, they unleashed a crushing volley of musketry, which broke the morale of the oncoming columns and caused them to waver. An Allied cavalry charge under Somerset then exploited the gap, routing the demoralized Guard. Napoleon's last gamble had failed as Blücher's forces began to engage the French right flank. Seeing the battle lost, the Emperor abdicated command and fled the field of Waterloo, his ambitions destroyed in a single day. The combined pressure of Wellington and Blücher's armies collapsed the entire French front soon after. Of the 72,000 men Napoleon had led onto the field that day, over 25,000 were now casualties, prisoners, or missing. The Allies, too, had suffered over 18,000 casualties, but they had prevailed on the field. The battle signaled the final defeat of Napoleon's armies and ambitions of a European empire. His removal meant the restoration of the Bourbon monarchy and a new resolve by the great powers of Europe to prevent any future threats to the balance of power. It ushered in a new period known as the Conservative Restoration. On a strategic level, it highlighted the potential of joint operations between Allied armies, maximizing their combat power. Napoleon's defeat at the hands of Wellington and Blücher at Waterloo brought an end to over 2 decades of war and cemented the Duke of Wellington's place in military history as one of the greatest battlefield commanders of all time. I hope you all enjoyed learning about the epic Battle of Waterloo and its immense significance. Be sure to subscribe to Legendary Conquests for more exclusive episodes detailing history's most legendary campaigns. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.